Okay, hi everyone. In this video, this is going to be a very low resolution video. It's to do with my review of the Canon 550D. This camera is one which I've been doing all my videos on for the last wee while. And it has full HD 1080p. It also has a normal HD 720p, which can be done at 60 frames a second. And also it has a movie crop mode where you can zoom really far in. And it also has a 640 by 480 pixel resolution for video as well. Again, at 50 or 60 frames a second. And that's what I bought this for. I haven't really used it for photography that much. I've really used it for videos, but I've just come up to my 10,000th image/video that I've used. So the file numbers have had to all restart again, so it's now at 0001, but it's got a new kind of name at the start. So I would say I'm fairly good with this camera now. So how do I do a review of this camera with this thing here? The other difficulty is the fact that I use Nikon lenses, so I can't really show you the focusing speed on this camera either. What I can say is video-wise, it's amazing. It's got both PAL and NTSC settings, meaning if you are in America or if you're in Europe, you can change the video settings so that if you're in Europe, it should be 50 frames a second. If you're in America, it'd be 60 frames a second, or alternatively, 25 and 30 respectively. Now, in terms of what you get additionally on this camera, this is very much made for people who want to use a point-and-shoot camera. Well, not point-and-shoot, but a very good quality camera which can do pretty much everything automatically. You've got the video setting, you've got the night portrait, you've got the sports, you've got the macro, you've got all these different settings, which I'm pretty much sure anybody watching this video, if you've been watching any of my videos, you're not the kind of people that are going to be using any of these auto settings. I don't think any professional photographer will ever tell you to use an auto setting. But it does have the P, the TV, the AV and the M. TV is the time variable, AV is the aperture variable, M is obviously manual, P is program, which means it's pretty much like auto, but you can change the aperture or the shutter speed just by using this button here. Now, what a lot of people coming from Nikon get confused about is that there's only one button up here, so how do you change stuff? And that is simply by pressing something. And all you need to do is hold on to the AV button and then use this button, and then that will change the second variable. So if it's your aperture variable is your top one, then you press your AV and you rotate this, then that will change your shutter speed variable, or TV as it's called in this. It's also got really high ISO abilities. This one goes all the way up to 6,400, and then in photo, not in video, you can actually enhance that so it goes into H1 and H2, which is, I think it comes up to around about 12,000 ISO, which is pretty high. I haven't really taken any photos at that level of ISO because obviously it's just going to be so much noise going on. The sensor inside this is the same as what you get in the Canon 60D and also the Canon 7D. The difference with this is that your frames per second aren't quite as good, the body is obviously a lot cheaper, battery doesn't last quite as long, but what additionally this has is the movie crop mode, where you can go into the center 640 by 480 pixels, and that gives you a 7 times zoom, effectively, inside your camera. Obviously, the quality is pretty pumped, and any tiny vibration becomes a huge vibration. So it's not that also something which you're not going to use that much. But if you've got a tripod and you're shooting maybe a snowboarder coming down a hill very, very far away, then yeah, that would be quite handy. That'd be quite cool. Frames per second, this actually does pretty well. If I put this onto manual, and I'll put a super high shutter speed, like let's say 1/500th of a second, here we'll look at the frames per second, but also the buffer rate. So I've just put in a brand new formatted 8 gig memory card, which, oh, this takes SD memory cards. And let's see, this is RAW and large JPEG being shoved into the memory card at the same time. Let's see how many it does. Okay, so what you can see there, it did 4 really nice and fast, and they're properly dropped right the way down there. It really kind of sucked there. But what if you're just doing JPEG? Let's say you're just doing some sports shots and you're not needing the kind of control of the RAW. Oh, also the other thing is you've got all the menu details on the back, and if you put your head close up to the screen, it goes away. So that's a good little power saving thing. So if you bring your eye up there, it takes away the brightness of this, so therefore you're not blinded, but also it saves the battery power. Now, okay, I'll just quickly change this so it's in, so it's just taking large JPEG, okay? And let's see how well it does now. Okay, right, I'll stop there because we've easily done over 120 photos there. And that's them all happily gone onto the memory card. Let's see if on the display it tells me, yeah, I did 120 photos there. Okay, that's quite impressive there. I'm very impressed on that one. What you don't get in this camera is the ability to change the white balance in terms of Kelvin. So like the temperature of the white balance if you're shooting JPEG. Now normally people will just say, yeah, shoot in RAW, you can change the white balance afterwards, which is fine. But if you're doing video, which is what I'm doing with this all the time, you really want to have that control of changing the temperature, white balance temperature, so it can be the same with this Canon 7D or the Canon 60D. But unfortunately here it's just all the kind of preset ones, which is the tungsten, sunshine, flash, and all that kind of stuff. What you can do though is you can very simply do an automatic white or a custom white balance selection, and that is just by getting a piece of white or grey paper, taking a photo of it in the current lighting situation that you're in, and then just a couple of buttons on the back of this, you can select it so it becomes the custom white balance, and that will give you the correct white balance for where you are. The only difficulty is it's still, whenever you're doing video, that you can't change it afterwards. So if you're doing a music video, for example, I did one recently where somebody had a 7D and I was using this, the colours don't come out exactly the same. So you need to, that's something we need to kind of be very, very careful of in the future. Another thing this has is a thing called highlight tone priority. So whenever you're taking a photo or also even doing a video, you can set it so that it keeps a little bit more detail in the highlights. I've done a video of this before where I was in a sunny part of Edinburgh near the castle, and you can see just a little bit more detail in the clouds, or not so much in the clouds, but in the sky leading up to the clouds. So check the link down below, or check on the blog. I'll put all the videos relating to this and its ISO ability and its video capability on the blog for you to see all together. But yeah, it's almost like a little bit of an extended dynamic range that you get with this sensor. Another nice thing is that you can zoom in on the video. So before you start taking a video, you can zoom in to the thing that you're looking at and perfect the focus where you want it to be, and then you can zoom back out and then click record. And that's quite good to make sure you've got it perfectly on the eyes, especially if you're using a very wide angle lens, not very wide angle, but a very shallow depth of field lens, certainly something with an f2.8 or an f1.8 or even less. The flash on this is also very good, it's quite powerful, and if you're doing kind of more party shots, this is great. If you're going out to the pub and you're taking this camera with you, you will get some pretty cool punchy colours. That's one thing I always think Canon is great with. Really gives very good saturated, punchy, high contrasty images straight out of camera. So if you're just buying this just for the sake of taking some photos, then yeah, auto stuff on this is absolutely great. It's really good beginner's camera. Obviously if you're wanting to get more into your photography, then you want to shoot RAW, and therefore you want to learn how to edit your photos afterwards. But otherwise, if you're taking this just for taking shots of your friends or your family, parties, stuff like that, this will give you great images. Well, it certainly has given me great images whenever I've used it, especially with the flash as well. I've been quite impressed with that. It also comes with an auto ISO which you can set. So if you are using it in manual and you want to make sure that you're always going to have a certain shutter speed, or if you're in aperture or TV priority or program as well, you can make an auto ISO adjustment so that you can say, look, I don't want it to ever go above 800 or 12 or 1600 or even 6400. So that can be quite helpful for those shots where you really want to make sure that you've got a fast enough shutter speed, but you just don't have time to go into the menus or change the ISO on camera. You're shooting really, really quickly. It's also got quite a technical thing here called peripheral illumination correction. And what that is if you're using some more old-fashioned lenses, Canon lenses with this camera, if they have vignetting, so darker bits around the edges of the image, this automatically knows that that's vignetting, and it will automatically get rid of that, which is quite clever. Don't know how it does it, but that's quite a handy thing if you don't want that in. I personally will keep that in because that usually adds to an image, and also usually 90% of my photos I usually add a little bit of darkening around to the edges to help really focus in on the thing that's of interest in the centre. Another handy thing is that it's got sensor cleaning. So every time you can set it so it's every time you turn it on, or maybe every time you turn it off, or every time you turn it on and off, it will have a little vibrations on the sensor, which is especially important if you're doing videos and you're changing lenses. So it will help clean your sensor. Every so often, obviously, it'd be good to take the lens off and properly give it a good shake. And also, you still need to properly clean it with a blower and with maybe one of those little swabs that you get to clean the sensor. But otherwise, having that in the camera, especially with video, is very handy. And along with that vibration, you've also got a thing where it's a dust data photo thing. I can't remember what it is, but if you take a photo and the sensor sees where the dust is, the software that comes with this, you can map where the dust spots are, and you can make it so it takes that out of every photo that you've got afterwards. Not in camera, but more on the computer afterwards. So that's another handy thing for making sure you've got clean images. Now on the side of the camera, you've got the holes for your mic, for your remote, for your HDMI if you're like putting it into a high definition camera, and your normal AV output for putting it into your computer. So that's quite handy if you want to, especially the mic bit, because a lot of these cameras will have the proper like a Rode mic, or even better, which you can attach on top of this to get much better sound quality from your videos. And it syncs it all up in camera, which is very handy for you. But otherwise, yeah, I would say I got this camera and it was about £650. That was for the body only. Lenses, obviously, you have to buy extra. I didn't bother buying any Canon lenses because I've got my Nikon lenses, and with just a very cheap adapter ring, this, I think it's called a Kawa adapter ring, I got it for, it's about £7, £8, £12 or something, plus packaging, which is about an extra £10. I can attach any Nikon lens onto this Canon camera, whether it's full frame or DX sensor type lens thing. It doesn't matter, I can stick it onto this. I can also stick this onto any full frame Canon as well with this, which is quite strange. I can put a DX, anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so that's quite good for that. So yeah, I never really bothered buying any Canon lenses. If I was to buy a Canon lens, I'd buy a wide angle f1.8. I think the Sigma 20 f1.8. So this is the 20 f2.8, but I probably want the 1.8 just because it's a whole stop and a bit brighter. So yeah, out of 10, I would say, well, for value for money, I would say this is great. Sensor wise, it's the same as what you get in the 7D and the Canon 60D, which came out just after this. In terms of video, it's going to be exactly the same as the other two ones, apart from the fact of the white balance not being able to be corrected exactly the same. Battery life is not quite as long, I don't think, but I use this a lot for video, and so far I haven't had a time where I've run out of battery before I've run out of ideas, or at least, you know, finished actually shooting. I've easily filled 2.5 gigabytes of video footage without running out of battery quite easily. But again, I suppose if you're using a lot of flash, that might use up a lot more power. But yeah, otherwise I would say value for money, very good. Functions, got loads of them. Video, brilliant. Body-wise, that's probably the biggest downfall, is that it's a cheap body. It feels really plasticky, but at the same time that makes it nice and light. So if you're buying Steadicams or something like that, then that makes this a much easier thing to hang about, because if you're doing any Steadicam, you need to have a counterbalance weight which is just as equal as this. So if you've got the big Canon 5D Mark II with a bigger lens on it, then you need a much heavier weight down there, and you need much stronger arms to lift it all. But yeah, so I would say if you're looking for a really good camera which can do really good video and you don't want to spend the whole world on it, then I would say forget the Canon 60D and go for this one. I'm sure I've got more to say, but I can't remember it just now. Hope that helps. Bye bye.